Oh, how my heart aches for the serene creek that once danced through my backyard, now transformed into a battleground by the iron fist of the Maple Valley Homeowners Association. Can you believe they had the audacity to label it a danger to children and demand I drain it dry? Little did they know nature has a way of fighting back, and oh, how it did. What would you do if the very people who shattered your peaceful haven found their own pristine homes sinking into a swampy mess of their own making? As I trudged along the creek bed, water splashing against my weathered boots, the gentle babbling soothed my soul, a melody that had calmed me for 11 long years. Birds chirped merrily overhead, and dragonflies zipped across the water's surface, their wings glinting in the sunlight. This little stream, winding through my backyard in Riverstone Heights, was my sanctuary, my escape. After grueling days wrestling with other people's plumbing disasters, I'd collapse by this creek, letting the stress of the world melt away. Could anything be more perfect, Mr. Jackson? Hey, Mr. Jackson. The joyful shouts snapped me out of my reverie. I turned to see Timmy and Sarah Thompson, those sweet neighbor kids, waving wildly from the edge of my property. They loved visiting to chase frogs or watch minnows dart between the rocks, their eyes sparkling with wonder. "Can we look for tadpoles today?" Timmy called, practically bouncing with excitement. "Sure thing, buddy," I replied, my heart warming at their enthusiasm. "Just make sure to put them back when you're done, okay?" I watched them tiptoe from stone to stone, so careful, so carefree, their parents trusting me to keep an eye on them. My creek wasn't deep, barely tickling my ankles even at its fullest, but it teemed with tiny creatures that captivated the neighborhood kids. Oh, how could I have known this tranquil scene was about to be torn apart, turned into a war zone? Trouble crept in like a thief. A week later, arriving in the form of a thick envelope, its fancy gold letters screaming Maple Valley Homeowners Association. An HOA? In our quiet corner of Riverstone Heights? That was news to me. Inside, a smug welcome letter declared that our free-spirited neighborhood had been swallowed up by the HOA from the shiny new development next door. I scowled at the paperwork. Monthly dues, architectural review nonsense, and endless rules dictating everything from how tall my grass could grow to what kind of Christmas lights I could hang. At the bottom, a signature line glared at me, paired with a chilling note. "Failure to return signed agreement within 30 days constitutes acceptance of terms." Ha! I tossed it onto the counter, figuring I'd just ignore the whole thing. Who did they think they were? My rebellion lasted a grand total of 3 days before Karen Westfield showed up at my door, her smile as tight as a drum and twice as fake. "Good afternoon," she said, her voice dripping with practiced politeness. "I'm Karen Westfield, Community Standards Director for Maple Valley HOA. I noticed you haven't returned your membership agreement." "Not interested," I shot back, keeping it short and sweet. Her smile didn't budge. "Creepy, right?" "I'm afraid it's not optional," she said. "Your property deed has a provision allowing HOA formation if 75% of homeowners agree, and we've hit that mark." "No way that's true," I protested. "I've owned this place for over a decade." But then she shoved a highlighted document in my face, something that looked suspiciously like it came from my own property records. "The provision was always there," she purred. "Previous owners never used it. We're just bringing order to the neighborhood." My stomach churned as I scribbled my name on her papers, each stroke of the pen feeling like a betrayal. "Wonderful," Karen chirped, snapping her folder shut. "Our first meeting's Thursday night." "Oh, and we'll need to talk about that unauthorized water feature in your backyard." "Water feature?" I nearly choked. "It's a natural creek. It was here long before my house. Natural or not, it's a safety hazard," she said, her eyes flicking toward my yard. "The Thompson kids could get hurt." I was floored. "The Thompsons bring their kids here to play in the creek. They love it." "Well, Mr. Jackson," she said, Her tone icy, unattended water features violate HOA rules. We'll deal with it at the meeting. Can you imagine the nerve? Thursday night, I dragged myself to the community center, slumping into a folding chair surrounded by neighbors who looked just as baffled as I felt. Karen strutted to the front, flanked by a guy she introduced as Richard Westfield, HOA president, and, surprise, surprise, her husband. We're thrilled to welcome Riverstone Heights to the Maple Valley family. Richard boomed like he was selling us a timeshare. Your homes will soar in value with our proven strategies. I glanced around. Some folks nodded like they were buying it, but others, their faces mirrored my skepticism. Were we really going to let these people take over our lives? The meeting crawled by, bogged down with talk of mailbox colors and fence heights, riveting stuff, right? I thought my creek had slipped their minds until Karen clicked her remote, and there it was, a photo of my backyard glowing on the screen. Moving on to safety concerns, she said, her voice sharp. This unauthorized water feature on Elm Street is a drowning risk for children. I shot to my feet. That's my property, and that creek's been there for decades. It's not some pool I built. The bylaws require all water features to be approved and fenced, Karen snapped, brushing off my words. It's 4 inches deep, I countered, my voice rising. 4 inches. Can you even drown in that, Miss S? Thompson, bless her, raised her hand. My kids play in that creek all the time. It's perfectly safe. Karen's eyes narrowed to slits. And do you have liability insurance for accidents on Mr. Jackson's property, Mrs. Thompson? The room went dead silent. Ouch, what a low blow. The rules protect everyone, Richard chimed in, all smooth and slimy. We'll need that creek fenced with a locking gate or filled in within 30 days. Filled in? My creek? I was speechless. After the meeting, I cornered the Westfields, my blood boiling. A fence around a natural creek is insane. Wildlife needs to get to it. Wildlife's another problem, Karen said, her nose wrinkling. Raccoons, possums, they bring diseases. That creek's a magnet for them. Your neighborhood? I scoffed. I've been here way longer than you. Richard clapped a hand on my shoulder, all patronizing. Look, we're just enforcing the bylaws you agreed to. Inspection team's coming tomorrow. I'd comply, fines add up fast. I shook him off and stormed out, my mind spinning. Something was off, way beyond their power trip. What were they hiding? Back home, I pored over my property survey, tracing the creek's path. It flowed into my yard from the northeast, straight from the fancy new development, where guess who? The Westfields lived in their mansion. Curiosity gnawed at me. I grabbed a flashlight and followed the creek upstream, the darkness wrapping around me like a cloak. Through a wooded patch between our neighborhoods, I reached a small retention pond behind their ritzy homes. My light caught a glint, something metallic. Wading closer, I found it, a drainage pipe, half hidden by cattails, feeding right into my creek. What in the world? I snapped photos with my phone, then traced the pipe back toward their houses. It led straight to the heart of their development, where the Westfields and their HOA cronies all lived. My brain raced, trying to connect the dots. Then, a golf cart's hum made me dive behind a tree. Peeking through the leaves, I saw Richard Westfield pull up to the pond. He glanced around, sneaky as a fox, then dumped something from a canister into the water. As he sped off, I crept forward and shone my light. Dead fish bobbed on the surface, right where he poured his mystery gunk. My heart sank. What kind of monster does that? My phone buzzed. A text from my neighbor Elaine Wong. Check your email. HOA sent a violation notice. $500 fine for unapproved water feature. Drain creek in 30 days or $100 daily penalty. I stared at the message, then back at the poisoned pond. This wasn't about kids' safety or stupid rules. Something sinister was brewing, and my little creek was caught in the crosshairs. Why were they so desperate to erase it? At 7:30 the next morning, Karen and two HOA goons, board members I'd seen at the meeting, marched onto my lawn like they owned it. I watched from my kitchen window, my coffee going cold. "Good morning," I called, stepping onto my porch, trying to keep my cool. "Can I help you?" "Official HOA inspection," Karen barked, barely looking at me, her phone already snapping pictures of my creek while she muttered to her lackeys. I trailed them, my frustration bubbling as they stomped through my vegetable garden to get a better shot of the water. "Hey, those are my tomato plants you're crushing," I said, my voice tight. "You'll need to move this garden anyway," Karen replied, not even glancing up. "Vegetable gardens belong in backyards, not visible from the street." "It is my backyard, visible from the side street," she shot back, pointing to the road skirting my property's edge. Section 8, Paragraph 3 of the bylaws. Unbelievable. For 45 agonizing minutes, they poked and prodded my creek, Karen's face lighting up with every nitpick. Excessive wildlife attraction, improper plant species, potential mosquito breeding ground, she listed, like she was reading a crime report. "Those plants are native," I argued. "They grow naturally along creeks, and moving water doesn't breed mosquitoes, standing water does." She gave me a thin, condescending smile. "Are you an environmental scientist, Mr. Jackson?" "No, I'm a plumber who knows how water works." "Well," she said, all smug, "I'm sure the board will value your expertise." Expertise? Ha! They just wanted me gone. Once they left, I called Marta Rodriguez, the only lawyer I knew who'd help with my mom's will. "HOAs have a lot of power," she said, her voice heavy with resignation. "Your agreement lets them control anything aesthetic or safety related. But it's a natural creek. It's older than every house here. Doesn't matter in HOA law," she sighed. "They can regulate anything on your property. Fighting it could take years and thousands in fees." Years? Thousands? My heart sank. Was I really powerless against these bullies? 3 days later, a certified letter landed like a punch. $500 fine for my unapproved water feature, with orders to drain the creek within 30 days or face $100 daily penalties. That evening, Miss S. Thompson knocked on my door, her kids trailing behind, their faces long. "We heard about the creek," she said, her voice soft with regret. "The kids are devastated." Timmy looked up, eyes brimming with tears. "Can't you save the frogs, Mr. Jackson?" Oh, that broke me. "I'm trying, buddy," I promised, though I hadn't a clue how. How do you fight a machine that's already won? Desperate, the first spread neighborhood maps across my kitchen table, searching for answers. Something about the Westfield's crusade against my creek didn't add up. Digging online, I found an old geological survey and compared it to current property lines. The creek didn't start on my land. It came from an underground spring right under the new development where the Westfield's palace sat. A spring? Under their house? That was no coincidence. The next day, I hit the county records office, poring over development plans. As I studied a map, someone tapped my shoulder. Fighting the creek battle? It was Elaine Wong, my neighbor, her kind eyes a balm to my frayed nerves. "How'd you know?" I asked. "We've all been there," she said, her voice bitter. "They made me rip out my koi pond last month." It'd been there 15 years. My grandma cried for days, my chest tightened. I wasn't alone in this nightmare. "I'm sorry," I said. "Did you know this whole area used to be wetlands? They filled it in for those new houses." Her eyes widened, including the Westfields, especially theirs. And get this, I found a drainage pipe from their retention pond feeding my creek. Elaine's face hardened. "Talked to Dr. Martinez at the community college. He fought that development 5 years ago, warned it had caused drainage issues." No one listened. That afternoon, I found Dr. Martinez in his cluttered office, buried in environmental reports. "That development?" he said, pushing up his glasses. "Disaster waiting to happen. They built on a spring system with no proper mitigation." He unrolled a topographical map, blue line snaking across it. These are underground water channels. They flow right under those new houses into your creek. Exactly, I said, my pulse racing. My creek's like a pressure valve for groundwater. If they block it, he made an explosive gesture. Boom! Water's gotta go somewhere. Physics always wins, I murmured, a spark of hope igniting. Always, he agreed. Water takes the path of least resistance. Could this be my way out? Armed with facts, I marched into the next HOA meeting, heart pounding. When resident comments opened, I grabbed the mic. I want to talk about the environmental impact of removing my creek, I said, my voice steady. Geological surveys show it's part of a vital watershed that prevents flooding. Karen cut me off, her face sour. We've consulted experts already. Who? I pressed. Because I talked to Dr. Martinez and he says, we're not debating settled issues, Richard barked. Next speaker. Settled? For who? Outside, neighbors gave me nods, their eyes curious. Miss S. Thompson and a few others caught me in the parking lot. We believe you, she whispered. Karen's been weaponizing safety to bully everyone. Last month, she forced the Patels to cut down their oak tree, said acorns were choking hazards. My jaw dropped. I'm fighting this, I told them, but I need backup. We're in, they said. A team. I wasn't alone anymore. That night, rain lashed down, and I watched from my car as an HOA crew worked under floodlights, digging trenches to pipe my creek underground. By morning, it was gone, just rocks and mud where life had thrived. I walked the empty bed, heart heavy, scooping stranded minnows into a bucket. Timmy and Sarah helped, silent, their small hands trembling. Where's the water gonna go now? Timmy asked, voice small. I looked toward the Westfield's hilltop homes. Good question, kid. 3 days later, the storm roared harder, and at 2 a.m., Elaine pounded on my door, soaked and frantic. You gotta see this, she gasped. Grab your camera. We sloshed through the downpour to the new development, and my jaw hit the ground. Water gushed up through storm drains, flooding Maple Drive ankle deep. Homeowners scrambled with flashlights, trying to save their foundations. And there in the chaos stood Karen and Richard in matching raincoats, barking orders to sandbag their property, only theirs. Sewers are backing up, Elaine hissed. 3 basements flooded already. Dr. Martinez's words echoed. Water follows the path of least resistance. Without my creek, it had found a new path right under their homes. Oh, sweet justice. From a shadowed oak, I snapped photos, capturing every muddy detail. At dawn, I saw it, the ground shifting, rivulets carving paths between houses. The Westfield's mansion loomed above, safe for now, but water doesn't wait. It rises, like truth, and they were about to learn that the hard way. Oh, the sting of that certified letter hit like a slap across the face. Can you believe it? $500 fine for my so-called unapproved water feature, with a cold demand to drain my beloved creek within 30 days or face $100 in penalties every single day after. My heart sank as I read those words, the weight of the HOA's iron grip tightening around me. That very evening, a soft knock at my door broke the silence. It was Miss S. Thompson, her face etched with sorrow, her kids, Timmy and Sarah, hovering behind her like shadows. We heard about the creek, she said, her voice trembling with apology. The kids are just heartbroken. Timmy, oh, that sweet boy looked up at me, his eyes red and brimming with tears. Can't you save the frogs, Mr. Jackson? He pleaded, his small voice cracking. My chest tightened. How could I let him down? I'm trying, buddy, I promised, forcing a smile, though deep inside I was drowning in uncertainty. How on earth was I going to fight this? After they left, I couldn't just sit there wallowing. No way. I spread out every map of the neighborhood I could find across my kitchen table, their crinkled edges curling under the dim light. Something about the Westfield's relentless crusade to erase my creek gnawed at me, It didn't add up. Why were they so obsessed? Digging online, I stumbled across an old geological survey, a treasure trove of secrets. Comparing it to today's property maps, my jaw dropped. The creek? It didn't even start on my land. It flowed from an underground spring, hidden right under the newest, fanciest part of the neighborhood, smack dab beneath the Westfield's sprawling mansion. Could this be the key to unraveling their game? The next morning, I was a man on a mission, storming into the county records office with hope flickering in my chest. I pored over property documents, chasing clues about the development's water management plan. Would I find the smoking gun? As I traced lines on a faded map, a gentle tap on my shoulder startled me. Fighting the creek battle? It was Elaine Wong, my neighbor from 2 streets over, her warm smile like a lifeline in that stuffy room. How'd you know? I asked, genuinely curious. Her face darkened. We've all been there, she said, her voice heavy with shared pain. They forced me to tear out my koi pond last month. 15 years it stood there, a piece of my heart. My grandmother cried for days when it was gone. Oh, Elaine! My heart ached for her loss, and suddenly I realized I wasn't alone in this HOA nightmare. Others were suffering too. I'm so sorry, I said, my voice soft with empathy. Elaine peeked at the map sprawled before me. Find anything juicy? She asked, a spark of curiosity in her eyes. Maybe, I replied, barely containing my excitement. Did you know this whole area used to be wetlands? The developers just filled it in to build those big houses. Her eyebrows shot up. Even the Westfield's place? Especially theirs, I said, leaning closer. And get this, I think they're funneling groundwater right through my creek. I found a drainage pipe coming from their retention pond. Can you imagine the audacity? Elaine's expression turned steely, her jaw set. You need to talk to Dr. Martinez at the community college, she urged. 5 years ago, he fought that development tooth and nail, warned everyone. It caused drainage disasters. Nobody listened. My pulse quickened. Could this guy hold the answers I needed? That very afternoon, I tracked down Dr. Martinez in his tiny, cluttered office, stacks of environmental impact reports teetering around him like a paper fortress. That development? He said, pushing his glasses up his nose with a knowing sigh. An absolute travesty. They built right on top of a natural spring system without a shred of proper planning. He unfurled a topographical map, its blue lines twisting like veins across the page. Look here, these are underground water channels. They run straight under those new houses and empty into your creek. Exactly, I exclaimed, my heart racing. My creek's like a safety valve for all that groundwater pressure, right? He nodded, his hands making a dramatic, explosive gesture. Cut it off, and boom, the water's gotta go somewhere. Physics always wins, I whispered, a grin creeping across my face. Always, Doctor, Martinez agreed, his eyes gleaming. Water follows the path of least resistance. Oh, those words lit a fire in me. Could this knowledge be my weapon against the Westfield's tyranny? Clutching this newfound truth, I marched into the next HOA meeting, my nerves buzzing like a live wire. When the floor opened for resident comments, I grabbed the microphone, my voice steady despite the butterflies. I need to talk about what happens if you destroy my creek, I began, pouring my heart out. Geological surveys prove it's part of a critical watershed system that keeps our homes safe from flooding. Before I could finish, Karen swooped in like a hawk, cutting me off. The association's already consulted experts, she snapped, her tone dripping with disdain. Oh, really? Which experts? I shot back, not backing down. Because I've talked to Dr. Martinez from the Environmental Science Department, and he says, we're not here to rehash settled matters. Richard bellowed, slamming the gavel. Settled? For who? I was fuming. As I slunk back to my seat, I caught neighbors stealing glances my way, their eyes thoughtful, maybe even hopeful. After the meeting, Mrs. Thompson and 3 other homeowners cornered me in the parking lot, their whispers urgent. "We believe you," Mrs. Thompson said, her voice low but firm. "Karen's been hiding behind safety concerns to bully everyone. Last month, she forced the Patels to chop down their beautiful oak tree, said acorns were choking hazards." Can you believe that? My blood boiled. "I'm fighting this," I told them, my resolve hardening. "But I can't do it alone. Will you help me?" Their nods were all I needed. A spark of rebellion was born. That night, rain pounded down in sheets, and I sat in my car across from my property, my heart breaking. Under harsh floodlights, men in yellow raincoats tore into the earth, laying pipes to divert my creek underground. By morning, it was gone, my beautiful creek, reduced to a barren scar of rocks and mud where water had danced for centuries. I felt hollow, like part of my soul had been ripped away. Walking the dead creek bed, I scooped up stranded minnows, their tiny bodies wriggling in my hands as I moved them to a bucket of water. Timmy and Sarah joined me, their faces solemn, working in silence to save what little life remained. "Where's the water gonna go now, Mr. Jackson?" Timmy asked, his voice barely a whisper. I glanced toward the Westfield's gleaming neighborhood on the hill. "That's what I'm wondering too, kid," I said, a storm brewing in my chest. Where indeed? 3 days later, the answer came with a vengeance as the storm raged harder. At 2 a.m., frantic pounding on my door jolted me awake. It was Elaine, drenched to the bone, her eyes wide with urgency. "You've got to see this," she gasped. "Grab your camera, hurry." I threw on a jacket and followed her through the torrential downpour to the new development. Rounding the corner onto Maple Drive, I froze, my breath catching. Water bubbled up through storm drains, flooding the street ankle deep. Homeowners scrambled with flashlights, their faces etched with panic as they fought to steer water away from their homes. Was this really happening? And there, in the heart of the chaos, stood the Westfields, decked out in matching monogram raincoats like some twisted power couple. Richard was yelling into his phone, while Karen barked orders, directing neighbors to pile sandbags around their property and only theirs. "The sewers are backing up too," Elaine whispered, her voice tinged with disbelief. 3 houses already have flooded basements, Doctor. Martinez's words echoed in my mind. Water follows the path of least resistance. My creek was gone, and now the groundwater had carved a new path right beneath the homes of the very people who'd killed it. Oh, the irony. Hiding in the shadow of a massive oak tree, I snapped photos and videos, capturing every soggy detail of their downfall. As dawn broke, I saw something even wilder. The ground around their foundations was shifting, tiny rivulets snaking between houses as the earth turned to mush. The Westfield's grand mansion loomed at the hill's peak, untouched for now, but I knew better. Physics always wins, and water? It's like truth, it rises, relentless and unstoppable. They had no clue what forces they'd unleashed, but oh, were they about to find out. The HOA's ultimatum. "You have 30 days to comply," burned in my mind as I stood in the rain, staring at where my creek used to sing. Lightning cracked overhead, lighting up the ghostly remains of water that had flowed here long before any of us. Sleep? Ha! Not a chance that night. I hauled out my laptop, diving headfirst into a digital rabbit hole. What rights did I have? What was this creek, really? My questions, simple at first, unraveled a tapestry of secrets I never expected. By sunrise, my kitchen table was a chaotic collage of printouts, watershed maps, property surveys, county records, you name it. My eyes stung from exhaustion, but what I found sent a surge of adrenaline through me. This wasn't just any creek. It was a vital artery of the Riverstone Heights watershed, the neighborhood's lifeline against flooding. When my neighbor Sam swung by with coffee, I couldn't contain myself. "Look at this," I said, jabbing at a 1962 map. "See how the water flows? It starts at an underground spring right under Karen and Richard's palace. Sam adjusted his glasses, squinting. Wait, so if they block your creek, the water's got to go somewhere? Exactly, I said, grinning. It doesn't just vanish. Could this be the leverage I needed? I craved an expert's take, so I called the local university. Dr. Martinez, an environmental science professor with gray-streaked hair and muddy boots, agreed to check out my property that afternoon. Rain dripped from her hat as she crouched by the creek, or what was left of it, testing soil and scooping water into a jar. "This is a textbook natural drainage system," she said, her voice brimming with conviction. "These tiny organisms, they're proof of healthy water flow. Messing with this could spell disaster for the whole area." She pointed uphill, where the ritzy houses gleamed. "This neighborhood was built on wetlands? Developers added drainage systems, but they lean on natural waterways like your creek to work right. Wetlands? Under their mansions? Oh, this was gold." Bolstered by her words, I begged to speak at the next HOA meeting. Karen's face twisted like she'd bitten a lemon when I took the mic. "I've talked to environmental experts," I started, slides of watershed maps glowing behind me. "This creek isn't just beautiful, it's critical. It channels water away from our homes, keeping us safe from floods." Karen pounced, cutting me off. "We've already consulted qualified experts," she sneered, her nails tapping impatiently. "Oh, yeah. Who?" I fired back, my voice sharp. "Because I've called every environmental consultant in the county, and not one has heard from you." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Yes, they were listening. Richard cleared his throat, loud and obnoxious. "That's confidential." "Next item. Confidential? What a cop-out." As I trudged to my car, a voice called out. It was Margaret G., an older woman from near the community entrance, her eyes darting nervously. "I worked 30 years at the county water department," she whispered, pressing a weathered business card into my hand. "You're right in there. They're making a huge mistake. Call my old colleague at the water department. Tell him Maggie sent you." My heart leapt. Another ally? Maybe, just maybe, we could turn the tide. Oh, my heart was racing when I sat down for coffee with Tom Richardson from the county water department 3 days later. Can you imagine the thrill of uncovering a hidden truth? He slid a stack of historical flood maps across the table, their faded lines whispering secrets of the land. "Your HOA president lives right here?" he asked, his pen circling a spot on the map with a knowing squint. This whole chunk was a seasonal wetland until 2015, when poof, the zoning changed like magic. My jaw dropped. "How does that even happen?" I blurted, leaning forward. Tom just shrugged, a wry smile tugging at his lips. "Money talks, my friend. But paperwork? It doesn't bend geology. Water follows gravity, not some HOA's bylaws." Oh, those words hit me like a lightning bolt. Gravity doesn't bow to Karen and Richard's whims. That evening, my stomach churned when an email from the HOA landed in my inbox. They'd upped the ante, moving up my deadline to destroy my creek. Contractors were coming tomorrow. I felt like the ground was crumbling beneath me. The next morning, I stood frozen, watching heavy machinery roar into my backyard, tearing into the earth like a beast. Karen lounged by her sleek SUV, arms crossed, her smug grin practically glowing with triumph. By sunset, my heart shattered. My beautiful creek was gone, forced into cold, lifeless pipes underground. The exposed creek bed stretched across my property like an open wound, raw and aching. How could they do this to something so alive, so vital? That night, a monstrous storm slammed into our neighborhood, the rain hammering my roof like 1,000 angry fists. I sat on my back porch, wrapped in a blanket, listening to the relentless downpour, my mind heavy with loss. Around midnight, my phone erupted with notifications from the neighborhood chat group, each one a cry for help. "Is anyone else's basement flooding?" one read. "Water's pouring through my walls on Maple Drive," another pleaded. "Sewage is backing up in my downstairs bathroom." My pulse quickened. Something was happening. I yanked on my raincoat and boots, grabbed a flashlight, and plunged into the storm, the wind whipping my face. Water pooled in the streets, but oh, what I noticed next stopped me cold. The flooding wasn't random, it was zeroing in on certain homes, especially those nestled near Karen and Richard's pristine properties. Could this be nature's revenge? Following a gut feeling, I slogged through ankle-deep water toward their street, my boots squelching in the mud. What I saw stole my breath water, bubbled up through their manicured lawns like defiant springs, mocking their perfect little world. The ground around their foundations was shifting, muddy streams seeping from beneath concrete like tears of the earth. My phone rang, cutting through the storm's roar. It was Elaine Wong, her voice frantic. My basement's completely flooded, and I'm not alone. I know, I said, my eyes locked on Richard, who was wildly sweeping water from his garage with a broom, his face twisted in panic. I'm seeing it right now. What's causing this? Elaine demanded. A strange mix of vindication and dread surged through me as I answered. The creek water had to go somewhere. Elaine. It followed the path of least resistance straight under the homes of the ones who killed its natural flow. Oh, how the tables had turned. Lightning cracked overhead, and I spotted something chilling, a hairline crack snaking along the side of Karen's house, widening as water pushed relentlessly from below. My creek hadn't vanished. It had just found a new path, one that was about to teach the HOA a lesson they'd never forget. Could nature really be this fierce, this unforgiving? At dawn, sirens wailed through the neighborhood, their piercing cries echoing my racing heart. Emergency vehicles lined Karen and Richard's street, crews pumping water from flooded basements in a desperate frenzy. I stood among my neighbors, our faces a mix of worry and quiet satisfaction, watching the chaos unfold. Emergency HOA meeting tonight at 777. Richard bellowed through a megaphone, his designer shoes squishing in the mud, his once perfect lawn now a soggy disaster. Oh, how the mighty had fallen. By mid-morning, news vans rolled in, their cameras hungry for the story. A reporter shoved a microphone in my face, her eyes sharp. You live downstream from these homes, sir. Any flooding on your property? Strangely, no, I said, the truth ringing clear. I had a natural creek that kept water in check, but the HOA forced me to remove it just last week. Her eyebrows shot up like rockets. The creek was gone right before this flooding hit. Before I could elaborate, Karen swooped in, her face a mask of fake calm. Pure coincidence, she insisted, yanking the reporter toward the emergency pumps. This is clearly a city infrastructure failure. Coincidence? Ha! Who was she fooling? My phone buzzed with a text from Elaine. Have you seen the Thompsons' place? It's the worst. My heart sank. I hadn't. I hurried to their house, finding Sarah Thompson on her front steps, surrounded by soaked photo albums and precious heirlooms, each one a stab to my chest. Her husband, Dean, hauled waterlogged boxes to the curb, his shoulders slumped. These were the folks Karen had used as an excuse to target my creek, and now they were paying the price. I'm so sorry, I said, my voice thick with sincerity. They weren't my enemies, not by a long shot. Sarah looked up, her eyes red and weary. The insurance agent just left, she whispered. They won't cover a dime, say it's surface water intrusion. The adjuster mentioned we're in an unmapped flood zone. My stomach twisted as I helped them move furniture to higher ground. She told me how water had gushed up through their basement floor like a cruel spring, destroying her grandmother's handmade quilts, and their kids' baby keepsakes' memories washed away in an instant. How could this be fair? That evening, the community center thrummed with fury, every seat packed, neighbors spilling along the walls, their voices a chorus of outrage. People who'd never uttered a peep at meetings were now shouting for answers. Karen pounded her gavel, her face tight with strain. This meeting will come to order, she snapped. First up, the unprecedented flooding event. Richard stepped forward, fiddling with his tie like a nervous schoolboy. We've spoken with city officials, he said, his voice oily. This is a city infrastructure failure, plain and simple. We're demanding action. Oh, please. The room exploded with questions. Karen pointed to a man in the front row, his face red with anger. My basement's flooded 3 times this week, he roared. Who's paying for this? Your homeowner's insurance, Karen started, but another voice cut in. They denied my claim. Said it's not covered because we're on old wetlands. Wetlands? My ears perked up. I raised my hand, waiting until Karen grudgingly nodded my way, her eyes narrowing. I've been digging into our neighborhood's history, I said, plugging my laptop into the projector with a shaky hand. This flooding? It's not unprecedented at all. My slides lit up the screen, showing maps from 1962, before a single house stood here. Our whole neighborhood was built on natural wetlands. Developers added drainage systems, including my creek, to keep things stable. I clicked to a county survey map, water flow patterns glowing like truth itself. When the HOA forced me to remove my creek last week, they cut off a critical drainage point. Can you feel the weight of that? Karen's face turned crimson. This is absurd, she spat. Are you saying we caused this disaster? I'm not saying anything, I replied, cool as ice. I'm laying out facts. Water follows the path of least resistance right under the foundations of homes built on filled-in wetlands. Richard stormed forward, his voice sharp. That sounds like a threat. Are you admitting you're responsible? I locked eyes with him, unflinching. I didn't redirect the creek, I said. The HOA did, ignoring my warnings and expert advice. Boom, take that. The room erupted, a tidal wave of anger crashing over the West Fields. Parents whose kids Karen had claimed were at risk from my creek now faced thousands in damages. Neighbors who'd stayed quiet through past HOA bullying were done holding back, their voices rising like a storm. Margaret Z., the retired water department worker, stood tall. I've called my old colleagues at the county, she said, calm but firm. Engineers are coming tomorrow to check this mess. Karen bristled. The HOA didn't approve any inspections. They don't need your permission, Margaret shot back. This is a potential public health emergency. Oh, snap, Margaret was a hero. The meeting dissolved into chaos, voices clashing like thunder. As I packed my laptop, Sarah Thompson slipped over, her whisper urgent. The water in our basement keeps coming back, no matter how much we pump, she said, her eyes glistening. Our foundation's cracking, and the HOA says it's our problem. We can't afford this. My heart ached. How many others are in this boat? I asked. At least 12 on our street alone, she replied. We need you, Mr. Jackson. You get what's going on. Help them? Me. I hesitated. Jumping deeper could paint a bigger target on my back for Karen and Richard's wrath, but their desperation tugged at me. I'll help, I said finally, but on one condition: when the time comes, we vote for new HOA leadership. Sarah's nod was fierce. Just tell us what to do. A pact was sealed. Could we really change things? The next morning, county engineers swarmed the neighborhood, taking soil samples and surveying the ground. I walked with them, pointing out where my creek once flowed, now just puddles in strange places. This is exactly what we told developers 15 years ago, the lead engineer muttered, shaking his head. You can't bury wetlands and expect water to play nice. His words were music to my ears. Validation at last. 3 days later, their report landed in every homeowner's mailbox, its words like a thunderclap. The recent flooding is directly tied to the unauthorized removal of natural drainage systems, specifically the creek at 247 Meadowlark Lane. My address called out in black and white. I barely slept, the weight of it pressing on me. When morning came, I stepped outside and froze. All 4 of my car tires were slashed, a vicious gash in each one. A note under my wiper hissed, "Back off, or else." Fear prickled my skin, but then anger surged. Intimidate me? Oh, they'd picked the wrong guy. I snapped photos of the damage, called the police, and then dialed the local newspaper. The reporter I'd met before pounced on the story. 2 days later, the headline screamed, HOA blamed for neighborhood flooding. The article laid it bare how the HOA ignored experts and erased a vital drainage feature, leaving homes in ruin. My phone buzzed nonstop with neighbors' calls, their voices a mix of rage and hope. Was this the spark we needed to fight back? Oh, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. A relentless chorus of voices from neighbors I'd never even met before, each call bursting with raw emotion. Can you believe the stories they poured out? Tales of the HOA's ruthless grip, arbitrary fines slapped on like cheap stickers, rules enforced with a wink for some and a whip for others, and personal vendettas that stung like betrayal. One father's voice cracked as he told me, "They forced me to tear down my son's basketball hoop, 2 inches too tall," they said. 2 inches. Meanwhile, Richard's boat sits in his driveway for months, bold as day, breaking the very same rules. My blood boiled. How could they play favorites like that? The unfairness of it all lit a fire in me, and I knew this wasn't just about my creek anymore. Oh no. It had grown into something massive, a rebellion against the petty tyranny that had choked our community for too long. The HOA had poked a sleeping giant, and boy, was it waking up. That evening, as I helped the Thompsons stack water barriers around their crumbling foundation, my heart ached for their struggle. The air was thick with damp despair, but then I caught a glimpse of something chilling. Karen and Richard, lurking in their car across the street, their eyes boring into us like hawks. The second they saw me staring back, they peeled out, tires squealing as they vanished into the dusk. What were they scheming now? Their sneaky retreat only fueled my resolve. Change was coming, and they couldn't dodge it forever. The neighborhood group chat lit up with a cryptic ping from Elaine Wong, her words electric. Emergency meeting at my house tomorrow afternoon. Don't talk about it here, spread the word in person. My pulse raced. A revolution was brewing. I could feel it. The water that once flowed so peacefully through my creek was about to surge into a flood of change, one that not even Karen and Richard's iron rule could hold back. Could we really pull this off? The next day, my heart sank when I stepped outside to find my car violated, 4 tires slashed, each gash a vicious wound. Someone did this, I told Officer Jenkins as he snapped photos, my voice steady despite the anger bubbling inside. I handed him the threatening note tucked under my wiper in a plastic bag, its words snarling, "Back off or else." "Any guesses who's behind it?" he asked, his eyes still on his notepad. "The HOA president and his wife aren't exactly my fans right now," I said, my jaw tight. Just then, my phone buzzed with Elaine's urgent text. "Emergency meeting at my house now." Now? My adrenaline spiked. This was it. I rushed to Elaine, stepping into a living room packed with neighbors, the air heavy with worry and fury, like a storm about to break. Sarah Thompson stood, her voice breaking as she showed us photos on her phone, soggy stuffed animals, and ruined books scattered across a wrecked bedroom. "My kid's ceiling caved in last night," she choked out. "They're with my parents now, too scared to come home." Oh, Sarah, my heart shattered for her. Michael Rodriguez rose next, his hands trembling with rage. 3 feet of water in my basement," he said, his voice raw. "My daughter's quinceanera dress was down there, my grandmother's from Mexico, a piece of our heritage. It's gone. Gone? How could something so precious be swept away?" Then Taylor Williams waved a letter, her face pale. "My insurance is dropping me. They're calling our homes high-risk flood zones now." The injustice of it all hit like a punch. How much more could we take? The room erupted with stories. Each one a wound laid bare, family photos reduced to mush. Mold creeping up walls like a plague. Cars trapped in muddy graves. "Karen keeps blaming the city," Elaine said, her voice sharp with defiance. "But I talked to a city engineer, and he told me straight. It's the creek diversion causing this." My throat tightened. I had to speak. "I found something," I said, spreading old property maps across Elaine's coffee table, their faded lines a testament to truth. "These show the water's original paths before they built this place. Notice anything? Everyone leaned in, eyes wide. The flooding matched those ancient routes perfectly. It's like the water's reclaiming its home, I exclaimed, my voice alive with discovery. Could they see it too? The HOA's broken at least 6 environmental regulations, I declared, my heart pounding. I've been talking to a Tribune reporter who's dying to tell our story. Elaine's eyes blazed. We've tried playing nice. Where's that gotten us? Nowhere. I pointed to spots on the map, my finger trembling with purpose. These 7 drainage points used to let water flow free. When they built over them, they stuck in pipes too weak for this kind of deluge. Michael's voice cut through, bold and daring. What if we fix them ourselves? Fix them? My mind raced. Could we really take back control? A plan sparked to life, bold and sneaky. We set up a group chat called Weekend Gardening Club to dodge suspicion. Who'd suspect a bunch of gardeners? Saturday morning, 20 of us gathered under the blazing sun, armed with shovels, pickaxes, and wheelbarrows, pretending to spruce up the community garden plot. My group attacked the drainage point behind the community center, digging through hard-packed soil with sweat streaming down our faces. Then Sarah's shout rang out, "Look at this!" She held up a jagged piece of plastic, her eyes wide. They buried the natural drain under construction trash. Trash? My blood boiled. How reckless could they be? We toiled all day, the sun scorching our backs, our shirts soaked through. Old Mr. Jenkins, bless him, shuffled over with a pitcher of lemonade, his smile a quiet cheer. Kids scampered around, turning rock hauling into a game, their laughter a bright spot in our gritty work. But around 4, a black SUV screeched to a stop, and out stormed Karen, her face twisted with rage. "This is vandalism," she shrieked. "I'm calling the police." My heart thudded, but I strolled over, mud-caked and grinning. "Hey, Karen," I said, cool as a breeze. "We're just maintaining drainage, like Section 12.3 of the HOA bylaws allows." I handed her a laminated copy, its words clear. Homeowners could work on drainage systems to protect property values. Take that. "This isn't maintenance, it's destruction," she sputtered, her cheeks flaming. By now, neighbors had gathered, even those untouched by the floods, drawn by the drama. Taylor stepped up, her voice steady. "Is it destruction to save our homes from flooding? Or is it destruction to ignore experts and bury a natural creek?" "Oh, Taylor, you legend." Richard appeared, tugging Karen aside, their argument heated. I caught him gesturing at the growing crowd, his face tight with worry. Were they finally feeling the heat? As evening crept in, dark clouds loomed, the air heavy with the promise of rain. The forecast warned of a downpour overnight, and my nerves jangled. Would our work hold? We hustled, finishing 3 vital drainage channels, our hands blistered but spirits high. "Think it'll work?" Elaine asked, wiping her brow as we stowed our tools. Thunder growled in the distance, and I glanced at our handiwork, my heart in my throat. "Only one way to find out," I said, half hoping, half dreading what was coming. That night, rain pounded my windows like a drumbeat, keeping sleep at bay. I tossed and turned, haunted by thoughts: would our channels save us, or had we made things worse? At dawn, I yanked on boots and a raincoat, stepping into a world washed anew. Where streets once drowned, water now flowed smoothly through our restored channels, a sight that stole my breath. I followed the main path, my boots splashing, until I reached its end, the Westfield's backyard. There, where Karen once flaunted her prize-winning garden parties, shimmered a pristine pond, its gentle flow a mirror of the ancient wetland. And at its edge stood Karen, staring into the water, her reflection wavering in disbelief. Oh, what a moment! Cameras flashed as a news crew captured the scene, their reporter's voice cutting through the drizzle. "Homeowners claim HOA negligence caused this flooding," she announced, neighbors behind her pointing to their battered homes. Karen shoved through, her designer shoes sinking into mud. "Turn those cameras off! she yelled. "This is private property." The reporter didn't flinch. "Actually, we're on a community easement per county records," she said, smiling. "Care to comment on reports your HOA ignored warnings before diverting a natural waterway?" Richard materialized, yanking Karen back. "No comment," he barked. "Our attorney will handle this." "No comment?" Ha! The truth was already out. The story hit the airwaves that evening, and by morning, my phone was a buzzing beehive of messages from neighbors, some I'd never even nodded to before. An official HOA email landed, its tone sharp. "Emergency meeting tonight. Attendance mandatory, or all measures pass automatically." My heart raced. This was our chance. The community center's parking lot overflowed, cars spilling onto the grass. Inside, every seat was taken, homeowners clutching papers, their faces carved with anger and determination. Could we finally turn the tide? Karen and Richard sat at the front table, their fellow board members flanking them, all looking like they'd swallowed lemons. Richard slammed his gavel 3 times, his voice strained. "This meeting addresses unauthorized landscape changes that harmed our neighborhood's aesthetics and values." Michael Rodriguez shot up from the back, his phone raised like a sword. "That's not why we're here," he roared. "I've been on with FEMA all day. They're calling our flood damage a man-made disaster." Murmurs swept the crowd like wildfire. FEMA? This was huge. Taylor Williams piled on, her voice fierce. "My insurance company's talking class action against the HOA for creating hazardous conditions on purpose." Karen's face flushed scarlet. "These claims are baseless," she snapped. "We followed protocol." But Elaine wasn't having it. She stood, waving a thick folder like a battle flag. "I've got the environmental impact study from before the creek was diverted," she said, passing out pages. "It warned of flooding if the watershed was messed with, and here's proof the board got these warnings and ignored them." Ignored them? My jaw dropped. How could they be so reckless? Richard's gavel crashed down. Those documents weren't for public eyes. They weren't meant to be buried either. I shot back, striding to the front, my heart thumping. Public records laws let anyone see them. I faced the crowd, my voice steady. "I've also got permits proving the Westfields' homes were built on protected wetlands without proper approval." The room exploded. Parents whose kids were traumatized by floods, seniors mourning lost heirlooms, families stuck in hotels as mold ate their walls, all hurling questions like thunderbolts. Sarah Thompson pushed forward, her voice trembling but strong. "My kids can't sleep. Terrified water'll crash through their ceiling again. Who's paying for their therapy?" Richard floundered, his words lost in the uproar. I caught him swap a panicked glance with Karen. Were they cracking? Then Taylor climbed onto a chair, her whistle piercing the chaos. "We've got a petition!" she shouted, waving papers. "It demands immediate board elections, signed by over 3/4 of homeowners, enough to force a vote tonight." Karen snatched the mic, her voice shrill. "This is absurd. We've kept property values high, maintained standards. Without us, this place would crumble." An elderly man, silent at every meeting I'd seen, rose slowly, his voice gravelly but powerful. "My wife and I have lived here 30 years. We watched them fill those wetlands for fancy houses. Nature always wins. You can't fight water. It goes where it pleases." His words landed like a gavel of their own, and the vote was a landslide. Elaine took the presidency, with Michael and Taylor as board members, their first move a bold plan to restore my creek and manage water right. Oh, what a victory. 4 months later, I sat by my creek, now flowing free again, its waters catching sunlight and tossing sparkles onto banks lush with native plants. Tadpoles zipped between rocks, a sight that warmed my soul. Downstream, neighborhood kids had built a tiny bridge, giggling as they hunted frogs under their parents' watchful eyes. The Westfields? They'd sold their house at a loss and vanished, their reign over. The new owners dove into the wetland restoration, even hanging bird feeders to welcome more wildlife. A true fresh start. "It looks like it was always meant to be here," Elaine said, settling beside me. her voice soft with awe. Because it was, I replied, dipping my fingers into the cool water, feeling its pulse. How's the class action lawsuit going? Settlement talks start next week, she said. HOA insurance is covering most damages. A blue heron glided down, its reflection sharp in the creek before it speared a fish with grace. You know, Elaine whispered. Karen left something when she moved. What's that? I asked, curious. A sign in her garage. Danger, water hazard. Keep children away. I hung it by the community garden with a new one below. Nature, not a danger, but a teacher. I laughed, the sound mingling with the creek's gentle song, flowing where it always belonged. Justice didn't come from courts or rules this time, just from letting nature run its course. What would our world be like if we stopped battling it and started listening instead?